Welcome to In the Zone, your mental strength and endurance sports podcast, presented by myself, Thierry from Juro Sports, and Mike from New Thrive. She's not here today with us, but as a special guest, we're going to talk today to Jasper McDowell. So welcome to the show, Jasper. How are you?
Hi, Cherry. Yeah, fine, thanks. And
So,
happy to be on the show. Thanks.
yeah, cool. So you just came back from London recently, where you completed the marathon. We're going to talk a little bit later about that. We had a great achievement, so already well done. But first, maybe tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, I know you since I think about 5 years or maybe 5 years. I think we met at Park Run. And you then pretty much straight away started to work with me at the camps. You did the coaching with the kids camps, then coached as well the junior camps for the last 2 years. So I know you well as a runner, as a coach, but here you are. You can tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story.
Yes, thanks. My name is Jasper. I was born in England and I moved to Switzerland at age 7. So basically my parents had to change jobs and our whole family moved to Geneva when I was 7 years old. So I started school in Geneva and I've basically been living here for the past 18 years of my life. But when I was 19, I went off to university back in the UK, went to Loughborough University to study sports science. And so did my bachelor's degree there for 3 years. Then I finished during the pandemic in 2020. So had to come back to Switzerland after that and wasn't sure what I was going to do then afterwards. So started doing a master's degree at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland. And I'm still currently doing that degree. I'm coming to the end of it now. I didn't mention the master's degree is also in sports science. And I'm currently doing an internship at the Swiss Federal Institute for Sport as part of my master's degree to complete it. Once I finish with this internship, I will just have to submit my master's thesis and we'll be done with that. So that's a little bit of my background and where I'm from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And how old are you now?
So right now I'm 25.
25. Cool. Perfect. And maybe tell us a bit about your background in sports. Was running quite an early sport you've done because you're still quite young, but maybe you did some other sports, team sports perhaps when you were younger?
Yep, so I did a lot of team sports growing up. Was never really just running. I did a lot of sports that involved running. So I played a lot of rugby, football, hockey. That's for team sports. I also did some individual sports. I did fencing, skateboarding, and basketball as well, another team sport. But never really got into running until I was about 16 or 17 years old. And that was through my dad, who was a big runner at the time. He was training for different races, and I decided to come along with him on some training runs, and that's how I discovered it and found out that I enjoyed it, and also entered a few races myself and found out that I enjoyed doing that, running races, training for them, training with my dad, and so that's how I got into running through my dad.
So you hadn't really done any sort of junior racing or like young sort of cross country stuff as a child. You just played a lot of different sports, a variety of sports, and came into running a little bit later.
Exactly, yes. I might have done 1 or 2 cross-country races in England actually with my school when I was very young. And then but no, essentially then was just purely team sports and no running races until about age 16 or so.
And do you think that this variety of sports that you had as a youngster helped you, or maybe you think that you could be running faster now if you had done more running as a background, or you think, I mean, I'm really in the camp of doing as many sports as you'd like, and as you can as a youngster, to just develop all these skills, motor skills and everything. And it's also less boring, because running, it's not boring, but it's, as a youngster, you want to do many different things. What are your thoughts? You think, maybe I should have started running a bit earlier, or you just super happy the way you did it?
No, I agree with you. I think that growing up, I'm glad I tried lots of different sports and developed lots of skills, and wasn't just running. I think maybe if I had gone straight into running, I might not have enjoyed it as much, might not have kept it up for so long. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely it was good to try lots of different sports, and also that I think the team sports are good way to make friends and learn sort of team building skills and
absolutely. So you tried all these sports, you get into running. Of course, you're following a little bit in your dad's footsteps, like you said. But what is it about running that you love? Why do you run, and why do you love running?
Yeah, so I think I could talk a lot about why I love running, but I think there are many reasons. I love I love the fact that you can do it anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, what sort of time it is, as long as you have a good pair of shoes and a pair of shorts, you can pretty much go out the door and run. So you don't need to, there's not a lot of equipment you need. It's very accessible for many people. I also love the community aspect of it, the sort of social side of running. So joining running clubs is a great way to meet people, make friends, and to train together to improve, to help you improve a lot. Also, I feel like I love signing up for races, setting myself goals, and working hard to achieve those goals. And I find it very rewarding to achieve a goal that you work months for, and I just
Yeah.
uh, love that about it.
And has your why changed over the years? Perhaps your first, the reason why you got into the sport as a 16-year-old, and now, what is the big difference in why do you run? Or do you still have that same freedom of love of freedom of going out there to run? Maybe that's the sort of the first reason, the first why. But maybe the other whys, like you said, the other reasons have changed a little bit. What just give us a couple of examples of how it has changed.
Mm. Well, I'd say yeah. When I first started, it was definitely the freedom aspect of it that was I enjoyed the most, and I I did like racing, but didn't race as often, and races were more of a bonus, I would say, and didn't really mind not racing. Would maybe race, once or twice a year, and I was happy with that. But I'd say now I'm more keen on finding out what my limits are and really pushing myself to the max, and trying to really optimize training, nutrition, sleep, and all that to really get the most out of myself in competitions.
And do you think so? Are you motivated to see how you push yourself, or you find in kind of getting a specific time, or just see how far you can push it? Or when you're on the start line, you feel competitive with the other guys around you, or you just actually don't really care what the other ones are doing? I mean, in a race like London, it's just so many people. Of course, it doesn't really, but maybe in a local race, there's less people. Are you motivated to beat the other guy next to you, or you just want to give your best shot?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm quite a competitive person in races, but the reason I like competitive races is so that I can get the most out of myself. So in a race like London, I think it's great because there are lots of people running around the same sort of time as me, so I can easily run with a pack of other runners, or try and overtake runners in the second half, things like that that motivate me. But at the end of the day, I'm more keen on improving on my own personal best in a race than I am on say winning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, great stuff. And And so you're really in love with the marathon distance, right? I think that's, I mean, you're very good at short distance. I know you've got the Devon Park Run course record, so that's well done for that. But I think you still prefer marathons, right? Why? What is it about marathons that you love over perhaps the short distance?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been attracted to the longer distances since I started running, but I feel like what I like about the marathon is the fact that it hurts less than a 5K, I would say, in terms
Yeah,
of intensity. So it's a lot lower intensity.
5K is horrible.
Exactly. It's short, but it's just so painful and
Yeah,
feels like it never ends. But whereas the marathon feels a lot more comfortable in terms of effort, at least the first half does. But I think yeah, that's probably one reason why. And but then again, short, the faster you are at the shorter distances, the faster you are at the marathon, and then the easier it feels to hold a certain pace. So I also like racing the short distances, but I feel like the marathon is much more rewarding when you get to the finish line, and it's a long journey, but it's worth the pain in the second half, and it's yeah, it feels
exactly.
like
I mean, I think, like you said, it's the journey. Really, it's not just the marathon itself, but it's also
Mhm.
the how you train. You know, getting fit to the start line. And of course, if it goes wrong, you can't just do one the next weekend. I mean, you have to rest, you have to think. Whereas a 5K, you can just do one every weekend and you'll be fine.
Exactly,
I
yeah.
think it's the emotions that you get out of it. Personally, for myself, I love Ironman triathlon, and it's just you can't compare it to a normal triathlon. At least for me, I love doing sprints and Olympic distances, but there's something about Ironman that you get so emotional at the end, and we'll certainly talk about that when for your experience of last time. But something that's I think quite interesting as well for the listeners and for other people is that so you're actually vegan, um, and I'm let's say 99% vegan. Let's put it this way. But there's a lot. I get a lot of questions from the people I coach, people I know. You know, how can you train? How can you do that on a vegan lifestyle? There's still this lot of misconceptions about protein, things like that. So first of all, why did you become a vegan, and how long has it been now? And perhaps do you see any benefits? I mean, or compared to maybe where you were not, what would be the benefits of a vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, so I've been vegan now for just over 7 years. So basically, when I was 18, I decided to make the switch to the vegan lifestyle, and it just came. It was actually first of all more for sort of sport performance that I was looking into, eating
Interesting.
plant-based diet. So again, just was doing a bit of research online on what sort of the best diet was for running, for like recovery and performance, and came across lots of content about the vegan lifestyle and how that helps with recovery and running performance. So I decided to try it out for a week to see how I'd feel on it, and I felt amazing. It was also interesting to try lots of new foods I'd never tried before and new recipes. So it was really interesting and had to be quite creative at first, but then I easily got the hang of it. And then so after that first week, I felt great and decided to keep it up. And basically ever since then, I haven't gone back to eating meat or animal products.
Yeah.
Uh, and then after that, basically, I also discovered the many other benefits of vegan lifestyle for not only the animals but also for the environment and the planet. And I think that's the reason why I'm sticking to it. For I've been stuck to it for so long is because it just makes sense to me, and I
Yeah.
feel like it's super easy to maintain, and that's why I'm still vegan today.
Yeah. No, it's
But also,
interesting. it's interesting because a lot of people probably go into a vegan lifestyle more for environmental reasons, I would say, or let's say for animal welfare. But for you, it was more, the original thought was actually it's performance driven. So you at 18, you're already thinking, how can I improve my performances? So it's great because you have a curious mind of trying perhaps different diets, and it has worked for you. And for sure, we see a lot of pro athletes all around the world now switching to a vegan diet, and it's certainly not you know unhelpful. I mean, it's on the contrary, I would say it's quite helpful. I mean, I'm not advocating for one or another diet. Everybody makes their own lifestyle choices, but I think what we're trying to say here is that absolutely you can be vegan and very successful at the sport.
Oh, definitely, yes. And I think a huge part of in why it helps in performance is just adding in a lot more nutritious foods to your diet. So lots of like colorful fruits and vegetables that,
Yeah.
with packed with micronutrients helps a lot with recovery. And again, eliminating lots of processed foods. And it's also quite important on a vegan lifestyle to supplement with B12 and and iron is also another one, not only for vegans, but as athletes, runners in particular, we do lose a lot of iron through training. So it's important to I regularly get my blood tested to make sure that my iron levels and vitamin B12 are also in the good range. So that's also an important part of it.
And following those blood tests, you've always had, they're always positive, always good, nothing to worry about.
Yeah,
Or
so
you had to adapt perhaps a little bit.
Yeah, so at first, after maybe a year or two, I did notice that my sort of iron and both iron and vitamin B12 were dropping a
Okay.
bit. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized I had to start supplementing and making sure I was getting enough of those nutrients. But everything else has been fine. All the other proteins and other vitamins, yeah, nothing is
Yeah.
lacking in a vegan lifestyle.
No, it's great. I mean, I certainly have, for me, when I started my triathlon journey as well, I basically eliminated red meat. It was basically just, again, a bit like you, but more through trial and error. And I think once I had red meat before a race, and it was just a disaster. And since then, I basically stopped eating red meat because I realized it was not agreeing with me at all. And you kind of find, through experience and trial and error, what works for you. And what certainly works for me as well is a very, not super strict, but let's say quite a vegan lifestyle diet as well. Yeah, cool. So yeah, thanks for that. We're here to talk really about your London Marathon. I mean, first of all, how many marathons have you done? Let's say competitive and non-competitive, because I know you do them on training days. So how many marathons in total, but how many of them competitive?
Okay, well, I mean, I've lost count of how many total marathons I've done if you include all the training runs and races.
Hundreds.
Yeah, yeah, probably yeah, well over 100. So, but
Okay.
I think officially, I think I'm on about 30 or so marathons
Yeah.
in races. Yeah,
But you count the number of marathons you've done sub 3 though, no? Or
yeah, I do. Yeah, so I've reached I think 40 sub 3 hour
wow.
marathons, including a couple in training and then races as well. Yeah.
And maybe tell us a bit, how was your first marathon? What was your first marathon like? Where was it? Tell us about the experience, a little bit about how it was and how you progressed basically until now.
Yeah, so my first marathon, I think like anyone's first marathon is always going to be a special one. So my one was the Geneva Marathon in 2015. So this marathon I ran just a couple of days after I turned 18, which was the legal, I guess, age
Oh,
you had to be to run a
yeah.
marathon. So throughout my whole training, I was 17 and just a couple of days before I turned 18, so I was able to run the race. And so again, because my dad was the one who got me into running, he ran one marathon. It was the Geneva Marathon in 2005, and he ran 3:14. So when I decided to run this marathon, my goal was to beat his time. So Yeah,
So
so
you are
found,
competitive. You are competitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course I'm competitive, yes. And so yeah, the goal is to beat this time. And so I found a training plan online, just a basic one. I think it was, I can't remember if it was a 3:15 plan or a 3 hour plan, but I followed that plan pretty well. And as I was getting closer to the race, I realized that basically running under 3:14 was going to be fairly easy. So I set myself a new goal of breaking 3 hours for
Wow. For your first
marathon.
marathon.
Yeah. So and yeah, so did the race, and the plan was to just go out with the 3 hour pacer and stick with him for as long as I could. And I did that, but after 16K, I thought, oh, this is too easy. So I decided to pick up the pace a bit, which may have been a mistake, but I didn't slow down and finished in 2:54. So
Wow.
yeah, that was a special one, and yeah, really loved that. And that was my first one.
Wow. So your first race, you break 3 hours, 2:54. Ah, amazing. So where do you go from from there? This is really,
Exactly.
really good.
Yeah, well, because I felt like I didn't quite run yeah, to my full potential because I started off maybe a bit too slow actually. So decided to run another one later that year in Lausanne. And there my goal was to break 2:50 and ended up running 2:49.55. So
Wow.
that's my second one. And then so that, yeah, after that, I thought that was pretty much as fast as I could go. I didn't really think I could go much more faster than that. But took a little break from running marathons for a few years, and then sort of came back to it a couple of years later, but um, didn't quite was never quite able to reach that time again. It was 2:49, and it wasn't until maybe 4 or 5 years later, no, maybe 3 years later, where I ran I think 2:46 in Vienna. And
Nice.
yeah, and then from there, I just kind of been chipping away at it, every year. Got down to 2:40 in 2019, just before the pandemic hit. And then in 2020, I had signed up for the London Marathon because I wanted to break 2:40 because I ran 2:40.06 in
Yeah.
Geneva. And it really annoyed me that I didn't quite break
Yeah.
2:40, so I wanted to give it a shot in London. But then all the races in 2020 got cancelled because of the pandemic, so wasn't able to run that race and had to wait until well, basically this year to run the London Marathon again.
Hmm.
And but I'd broken 2:40 eventually in 2021 again in Geneva in the virtual event. And then yeah, from there I'd never been wearing carbon shoes before that. I'd done all my marathons in traditional racing
Hmm.
shoes. So I thought, well, these, should, if I get myself a pair of carbon shoes, I should be able to take about 5 minutes off my time. And I also felt like with a bit more training, I could also take another 5 minutes. So I thought the 2:30 barrier would be possible eventually, but didn't think it was going to actually happen until this year when I ran London. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
extraordinary. I mean, so you broke now 2:30 at London. So your exact time was 2:29 and 40
43 seconds.
43 seconds. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And from going from 2:54 to now 2:29, what has changed really in your training? I mean, obviously it's a big chunk of time, but I think what people don't really realize is the speed at what you're already going for 2:54, and 2:29 is just it's an extraordinary speed. So I think when if you go from, let's say, 4 hours to 3:30, I mean, massive respect, but I think when you go from 3 hours to 2:30, that is another level. So what is it that changed really? Is it just experience? Like you said, the carbon shoes really helped, but I mean, it doesn't help 25 minutes. Um, what is it in your opinion the biggest factor over the last few years?
So I would say experience is definitely plays a big role in running marathons, especially because it's not only about how fast you can run, there's also nutrition, hydration, and then huge mental component of running that distance. So I would say experience is probably the number one factor that helped me yeah, get my time down.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, and through experience, then you can practice different, nutrition strategies, hydration, in training and also races, and eventually, so now I know exactly like what I'm going to eat the couple of days before the marathon, what I'm going to eat in the morning of the marathon, drinking as well, and then how many gels I'm going to take, what I'm going to drink, and knowing the course as well, like where they provide water on the course, quite important. Also, what they provide it in, if it's cups, bottles, that can make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it seems like you've got your preparation down to every little detail, from the before the race to during the race, knowing the course, knowing everything, having your nutrition plan, visualize as well, probably the course, knowing the course. That's just so important, and we tend to forget, or just kind of, we don't really want to spend time on that. And I think we try to focus too much about running and training, but actually on the day, there's so many things, so many factors that can help you to basically prevent either the bonk, or being just falling off the pace. How many laps do you have on your watch? I know, for example, I think you told me you had every 5 kilometers you would manually lap the course.
Yeah, so basically I turn auto lap off my watch because especially in a city like London, there are some tall buildings that can affect how accurate your GPS is. So I like to just look at my lapse time, and every time I get to 5K, I lap my watch.
Yeah.
And so to break 2:30, I knew I had to be running 3:33 per kilometer. So that's 17:45 for
That's
every
just
5K.
That is so fast. I mean, just to put this into perspective, that's a what, 17:45K you said? Yeah.
That's 17:45. Yeah.
17:45. So that's a 17:45 park run, but
Eight
eight
times.
times. So
Exactly.
yeah, but it's interesting to put that into perspective for people, because they think, wow, 2:29 is, wow, it's incredible. What does it mean? Well, when you
Exactly.
think of people who generally do a park run, say in 25, 30 minutes, yeah, no, that's serious speed. Yeah, I do that. I did that my last Ironman. Actually, I had the auto lap. I didn't they have markers, but I decided to put mine on. It wasn't as busy as London, and I have mine on 4 kilometers. I think it's nice. It gives you a more even split in terms of average, I think, pace compared to a kilometer. Because if you grab a drink and you slow down 5 seconds, and I think over a 4 or 5K, it gives you a more general view, and you don't have to stress so much about every kilometer, and it just beeps less often, because it's just annoying after a while. And for me, I knew I had to do 10 laps, and for you it was 8. And you can think about it this way, and mentally, I think it's easier than when you have 42K. If it beeps every kilometer, that's 42 times. It is too much. I guess, was that a bit of your strategy, or was it kind of, or
Yeah,
it was just
exactly.
basically purely because you had 5K markers?
No, it's also a good way to mentally break down the race. And, like you said, I can basically think of it as a park run. So I know that
Yeah,
I'm having 8 park runs, and I can just focus on one after the other, and, just get to the next marker. But also in London, they have timing mat every 5K. So
yeah.
that's also
That's on the
quite,
big races. Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
sure they would have that in Geneva or Lausanne in Switzerland. Maybe they do. I'm not sure actually, but I'll have
And
to check it out.
in Geneva, they have some timing mats, but
But
they're at strange distances, not
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, cool. But and so was your preparation any different for London? I guess that was your main goal this year, or you had, yeah, or maybe it's not, your main goal. How was your preparation? Was it specific for London?
So London was actually my main goal for this year.
Okay.
And so yeah, I had some key sessions that I wanted to hit before London and in the build up. And one of them that I always like to do before a marathon is 3 times 10K. around marathon pace.
Yeah.
And in the past, I've tried to maintain that. I've been fine for the first two, but then I suffer quite a bit in the last rep. Whereas this time in the last rep, I was able to maintain, yeah, a couple seconds slower, but still maintain more or less my goal pace.
With
So
how much rest in between you do that?
so just jog 1 kilometer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
You start. You have a warm up of what, 2K,
5K warm up.
5K warm up. Okay.
Yeah, and then 5K cool down. So
So
yeah, that
it's a marathon.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
With about
Yeah.
30 marathon pace.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so that went really well. It's the best I've done that session, yeah, ever basically. I mean, all my marathon build-ups. So that was, yeah, one key one that I really wanted to do well on. But other than that, just run a high volume, lots of kilometers during the week, lots of easy running. But I think also what's been different in this training build up was that I did more elevation gain actually. So because where I am currently in Bien is where I'm living for the internship, but then I I have to go up the hill to get, well, obviously I use my commute there to run up to get to my workplace every day. And so basically run 500 meters up a hill every
Mm.
day. So I think that actually helped a lot in building strength
Yeah.
and improving running economy essentially through that strength. And also but making sure that every run I kept it in my zone two when I was running uphill. So I'm getting in an easy run, which is also less impact than running, say, on the flat road, because I'm running a bit slower up a hill, but I'm also building strength at the same time. So that was something slightly different that I guess I did in this preparation. I
Yeah.
think that helped a lot.
No, I agree about the hill running. I think I love to give my athletes hill reps for marathon training, where you just go up and down a hill. You know, whether it's 200, 300, or 400 meters, you don't go above marathon pace. You maybe find something 3%, 5%, not super climby, just maybe not as hard as the one you talk about. Something not too steep, but then you get that sort of pace, a marathon pace, and as you come back down, you just relax and jog, and you do that 10 times, 15 times, 20 times maybe, depending on the length of the hill. But that's too straight for strength in the legs, because especially you'll need that in a marathon at the end. I think that's when after 30K, that's when you really start to suffer. And do you do any strength work by any chance?
So I haven't been actually, I didn't in this build up, I didn't do very much strength work because I've been doing so many hills. I think that helps a lot
Mm.
with strength building. But other than that, I haven't really done much strength work besides a bit of core exercises here and there, but never really went to the gym to do specific strength exercises for this build up. But I feel like myself, I've been very lucky to never suffered from any major running injuries
Mm-hmm.
over the basically my whole running career. But I feel like who knows if I do actually incorporate a structured strength program, maybe it could help me improve even more
Yeah.
in running in the future. So
Yeah, it's something that endurance athletes tend not to do so much, because they probably think, oh, I'm going to miss a running session. But I mean, I'm a big fan of strength work, and yeah, I think we could lift heavy and replace actually a running session, and you're not going to lose much running speed or anything. Actually, you'll just gain speed because you have a big power. And you as well, it's more for an injury prevention, you build better core, etc. So yeah, but perhaps something to look at for the next stage. So now we've talked about the preparation for London. Now the race itself. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the race itself, it was
Was that the first time, or you ran the London Marathon, or
so
no?
I ran it once in 2018,
Okay.
but that was a very hot day, and I wanted to run a PB of around 2:45, but ended up blowing up completely in the second half and finished in 3:19. So
Oh wow. Okay.
it was one of my slowest ever marathons. So yeah, basically got a course record by 50 minutes, which is quite a lot. I suppose. But yeah, so but also when I did it back in 2018, I was in I think I was in the can't remember which block, the starting block I was in, but I was quite far back and I struggled a bit in the first few kilometers to get up to speed because it was so crowded.
Hmm.
This time it made a huge difference to be in the championship entry, which put me just behind the elites. So I started right away and didn't wasn't yeah blocked by a huge crowd of runners, and that helped a lot. So I was able to get almost straight into race pace from the beginning. So yeah, the course itself, the first 5 kilometers, it's a bit of a climb, I'd say, for maybe first 3K, and then a big downhill before you reach the first 5K. So I knew that I wasn't going to go out. I didn't want to go out too fast for
Yeah.
the starts because I knew it was slightly uphill. So it was a little bit sort of over marathon pace, just warming into it still. And then when I reached downhill, sort of let the legs go a little bit, but still holding back, and came through the first 5K in 17:39. So I knew I was, yeah, just a bit ahead of pace, not by much, but it was
Yeah.
right where I wanted to be. And then from there, I sort of was able to get into I still wasn't quite feeling warmed up yet. It was still quite early on, but I found some other runners to run with, and sort of at that point, I wanted to stay as relaxed as possible and conserve as much energy as I could. And then got to the next 10K. I think I ran a little bit slower than I think I was around 17:49. So at that point, I was sort of bang on pace, which was where I wanted to be. And then just after 10K, you go past Cutty Sark in Greenwich, and there's a
Yeah.
huge crowd there, and they're
Yeah.
roaring. And it just really lifts you up. And at that point, that was where really started to feel good finally, and properly warmed up and really into it. But again, I knew I still had to hold back and not get ahead of myself because it was still very early in the race. So I maintained my pace through the next 5K. I think the next 5K was even a little bit slower. It was 15, no, sorry, 17:52. So I was still a bit under pace.
Hmm.
But then I got to 20K, and I think that split was right around 17:45. So I was sort of right on pace where I wanted to be. And just after 20K, you cross Tower Bridge, which again, there's another massive crowd. And I knew that my club, who I run for in the UK, the Vegan Runners UK, were going to be on Tower Bridge.
Yeah.
When I saw them, I gave
Got a
another
big cheer there, huh?
yeah, a big confidence boost and big cheer. Maybe a bit too much because when I got to halfway, I came through right where I wanted to be in 74:45.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
I was on pace for yeah 2:29:30. So I knew I had those 15 seconds to play with, which was good. But I felt so good, so confident that I decided to pick up the pace a little. And I think that was a mistake that I made. I think if I'd gone back, I would have just maintained then, because the next 5K from 20 to 25, I ran in 17:19. So
That's
uh,
fast.
yeah, it's a 5 seconds per kilometer increase. So,
Hmm.
but at that point, I was feeling so confident that I was going to break 2:30 that I
So
thought,
17:19, you said, huh?
yeah,
I
seventeen
think that's
nineteen.
like, I think that's 7 seconds slower than my 5K PB. So just to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so at that point, I was feeling so confident about breaking 2:30 that I thought it was more a question of by how much I was going to break it, not if I was
Okay.
going to break it. So I was even considering running at 2:28 or 2:27, and just from there increasing the pace. But then I think it started to hit me at 25K. I thought, okay, I still have quite a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I slowed down a little from 25 to 30. I actually ran my slowest 5K, which was 18:05. So at
Mm.
this point, I realized, okay, that little acceleration was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And now I'm paying for it. But I was still on pace because I'd banked a couple seconds and I just lost 20 seconds in that 5K, but
Yeah.
I knew I was still on pace, but I had to pick it up from there again.
And how did you, because you went from telling yourself, oh, I've got this in the bag, it's fine, see, the big cheers, the big crowd, I've got this, it's going to be awesome, to all of a sudden you see your watch and it says, oh, you're falling behind. Now the little demons or the bad voice inside your head tells you, oh, you're going to pay for this now or whatever. How do you manage that? Do you have a conversation with yourself? How do you, because that's really a show of mental strength, because you had your best 5K split and now your worst 5K split. So you go from a high to potentially a low, which will spiral you downwards. How do you deal with that? How did you deal with that?
So it was quite hard to see that split and realizing that I maybe had pushed a little too hard too early. So, but I just told myself to stay calm, and I knew that I was still on pace, and that I
Yeah.
just had to get back on to the pace that I was originally set out at, and but also at 30K, I knew that I had done the majority of the race and I only had 12K to go. So in my mind, I could easily just focus on the last
Yeah.
part of the race, and I knew that I had to basically just at this point not worry about holding back. At this point, I could really start to pick it up, and it didn't really matter if I went too fast because I didn't have that much left to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got to, I like to get, when I get to 20 miles, that's what I really consider the halfway point in terms of effort. And that's where the race really begins because you have 10K left. And yeah, it's quite a good way to also mentally split up the race to try and get to that 20-mile mark feeling good so that you can push for the last 10K. And so when I checked my lapse time at 20 miles, I realized that I had to run the last 10K in 35:30, which was exactly my marathon pace of 3:33 per kilometer. So at that point, I knew it was going to be tough, even though I
Mm-hmm.
was running the same pace because I had 20 miles of running in my legs. I knew I had to dig deep then. But also when I get to 20 miles, I like to tick off each kilometer because I know that, well, we're also in just single digit numbers, so
Yeah.
you can cut down quite easily. But then also I just like to visualize, a 10K race or a 10K loop that I do because I know there's not that far to go. Um, and I know that at this point I can really start pushing and well, I have to if I want to, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
make
because
the
it's a fine margin. I mean, like you say, you're right on target, but in the end, you finish with 2:29:43. That's 17 seconds. It's not a lot. There's not a lot of room for error.
mm, no, not a lot of room for error at all. And at that point in the race, I was alone. There was no one
Okay.
to run with, and I basically just had to try and focus on the runner in front of me. And I knew at that point lots of people were slowing down, so trying to catch up with the next runner and just focus on one after the other was again trying to use that competitive side to help me run a faster time was what I was trying
Mm.
to use there. So then I think 30 to 35, I split right around 18 flat. So again, I was still a little bit slow, but on pace because
Yeah.
again, I had to run the last 5K bang on 3:33 per kilometer, or the last 7K. But then at that point, it was very painful. I was
Yeah.
really deep in the pain cave, and I knew I just had to really dig deep. And but again, I knew that there wasn't that far to go, and I was just also visualizing the last 5K as a park run to go, 5K left,
Hmm.
and I knew I had that in me, and And then I was able to pick it up again from 35 to 40. I ran 17:30 something. So at that
Yeah,
point,
you knew you had that margin for the last
yeah,
2K.
exactly, yeah. But even at 40K, I knew it wasn't over yet. So I knew I couldn't celebrate, and
Yeah.
I started to focus and dig deep because it was
Don't,
at that point.
you don't want to celebrate early and just cramp as you,
Exactly.
because that 15 seconds is gone very quickly.
Yeah. So that point was probably the most pain I'd been in the whole race at 40K. But I knew there wasn't far to go, and got to about 41 where you can see Big Ben, and at that point, this is sort of the part of the race I'd been visualizing over the past couple of months, throughout my training. I knew that after Big Ben, I just had one right hand turn straight, and then two more right hand turns before the finish. So at that point, I was again just trying to run as fast as I could without, trying to, yeah, without blowing up. So it was a fine margin, but again, I was using that competitive side of trying to overtake as many runners as I could in that final stage. But still wasn't quite sure if I'd, done the right sort of maths in my head as to what pace I was on.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got to the last bend with 400 meters to go. There's a big sign saying 400 meters left. I checked my watch one last time. I knew I had 96 seconds to get to the finish line. So I knew that's 4 minutes per kilometer. So I knew I'd done it at that point,
Yeah.
and at that point the pain just sort of went away, and I could start celebrating
Get
and
the adrenaline going through, and
yeah,
yeah.
waving to the crowd, and I knew I'd done it, and I knew there was no point in trying to sprint the last 400, because I'd made it under 2:30, and then yeah, crossing the finish line was just, then all of a sudden all the emotions came in, and I was just realized that I'd done it, and couldn't believe I'd taken 4 minutes off my previous PB and broken 2:30. And
Yeah.
there's a great video that a friend sent me, of me crossing the finish line and then hugging a few runners at the end, because we'd all made it under 2:30, and it was
Yeah.
just such a special moment, and I think I'll remember that forever.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's just I think what really strikes me is that I think probably throughout the years you've experienced a lot of things. We talked about that, the experience, but you know, you're doing so many things right in your preparation, the sessions, the visualization, nutrition, knowing the course, going there early. That there's maybe you don't realize it, that's that, but there's so many examples throughout this conversation that I could list now. It's just stunning, and that's really a really a great example. I really hope people do listen to this podcast to understand the level of detail that you have to go into. But whether you run 2:33 or 3:30, the same thing applies. We, in the end, you gave your best and that gave a 2:30. Someone else might give their best and it'll be 3:30, but the same level of attention to detail will matter. And if you don't do that work, you can add 15 or 30 minutes to your time because you're not at your true potential. What's next? Did you have you thought about this already? I mean, has it sunk in yet, your result? Do you have other targets that you'd like to achieve? Maybe non-marathons, but yeah. What's next for you now in terms of marathon, probably?
Okay, so in terms of marathons, well, I'm doing a few more this year, but because London was my main goal, the other marathons are sort of just a bonus,
Backups
backups as well.
in
Yes,
case, yeah.
case. But looking forward to my next one. That I'll be running in Lausanne with yourself and Bruno.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was going to say, what's
Yeah.
next? Absolutely. I have to break sub 3. Bruno has to break sub 3. So we got you in as our a very 5-star. I don't know how you could call that in English. In French, we say the lièvre, the rabbit,
Pacer.
the pacer,
Yeah, pacemaker. Yeah.
the pacemaker. Exactly. So yeah, we'll be hoping to break sub 3 there. And definitely for us, it's the same thing. I mean, we know I've been training quite well, and it's exactly knowing, nutrition, the course, etc., etc. I've done Lausanne a couple of times, so hopefully we'll be able to break sub 3. But yeah, what's next for you? That was that was
Yeah.
us, but
So I basically set myself 4 goals this year to achieve in distances. Well, basically the 5K, the 10K, the half marathon, and the marathon.
okay.
And I've achieved 3 out of 4 of them. So my 10K goal was to break 32:30, which I did. My half marathon goal was to break 72:30, which I did. And marathon goal was to break 2:30, which I also just did. And now my 5K goal was to break 15:30.
Mm,
And currently at 15:43. So yeah, basically before the end of the year, I'd like to go under 15:30. That's my, and
yeah.
then I'll have
Yeah,
achieved.
that's good. Good end of the year little goal. Still a few months. I mean, it's a shame that in parkrun Devon has been cancelled. That's obviously a nice opportunity to do a 5K quite on a quite regular basis. Probably that's probably what stopped you as well. You know, you probably would have ran that a few times.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can definitely achieve that, and probably would have run it by now if I was still doing the park run. Yeah, if it was still going ahead every Saturday. So gonna have to find a 5K race, or maybe go to the UK or somewhere, another
Yeah.
country, where I can do a park run before the end of the year.
And so I know you're also, I mean, you've been coaching with me with the kids, but you're now transitioning from your studies to into coaching yourself. Um, what have been your learning moments, you know, as an what are you bringing from your athlete background, let's say, to coaching, or has your coaching changed, or has your the way you train changed? You see what I mean? Has your training changed since you've become a coach as well? Do you probably see other perspectives from runners, which are obviously a lot slower than you?
I think it has changed a little bit in terms of, I guess, structure. Although I still think I could improve a lot in my how I structure my training. But it definitely has been a bit more structured than I did before I started coaching.
Yeah,
It was a sort of bit all over the place, really. There wasn't really a clear sort of progression and structure in my I guess my weekly training, and this, increasing the volume and intensity over the weeks. But I'd say now I have a bit more of a structure in terms of, like, when I set my sort of big marathon workouts before the race, how many weeks out, and then I guess tapering as well. I think before even now I still struggle a lot with taper, and something I could improve on more in terms of just reducing volume and keeping intensity there as well. So I still think there's definitely more I can do to improve my training, but I'd say, yeah, since starting coaching, it has improved quite a bit.
yeah. No, it's well, you know, well done for this really great journey into running. I think we can learn so much from your story. From again, like I said, you're doing so many things right. It's really a great example for everyone out there. So thanks a lot for sharing that with us. And just a quick couple of questions. What is your typical nutrition plan for race day? So what do you have in the morning and what do you have during your race?
So morning, I like to stick to porridge, simple, porridge and banana. That's what I have pretty much before every race. And
How
then
long before the race?
so about 2 to 3 hours before the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I like to drink beetroot juice, which is something I sort of experimented with a bit more this time. I've used it in the past, but this time I was actually drinking beetroot juice every day for the whole week, during the last week leading up to the marathon, plus the morning of the race. So I think that helped. I don't know if it helped or not, but just, knowing about the effects that it can have on your running performance, I think it helped a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, beetroot juice is something else that I had in the morning. And then during the race, I basically carried 7 gels with me. Well, I carried 8 because I just wanted to have a backup. But my
Yeah.
plan
If
was to
one
have,
falls or something, yeah.
yeah, you know, plan was to have a gel every 4 miles in London. So I did that from mile 4, 4, 8, 12, up until 24. And yeah, that worked out pretty well. And then water, just drinking water on the course. I knew there was water every 5K or just
So
rough.
4 miles, that's 6K.
Yeah, about
So that was
six.
what, about 20 minutes? No.
Yeah, about 20,
Uh
22 or so minutes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, cool.
Yeah. And I wasn't too strict on as soon as I get to the 4 mile mark, I'll take the gel. It was more or less around, yeah, every 20 or so minutes, just over 20 minutes, I would
Yeah.
take it down. But it was just yeah, I just wanted to give myself yeah, just a marker to
Yeah. And you said it's the Morton gels that you use, huh?
yeah, so using Morton gels, exactly, yeah. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've used those for the past yeah, a couple of marathons I've done and work really well with me. So it's something I've experimented with quite a bit. So I know that they work for me.
Cool. And final question. What is your favorite training session? Now, you talked to us about the 3 times 10K, but that cannot be your favorite session. I don't No, what is your favorite one? The one you love doing, maybe it's the one you have it on a weekly basis or something. I don't know, whatever. What is your favorite one?
It's hard to pick. Um, I actually just like easy runs, just a standard easy zone 2 run, like conversational pace. I'm a big fan of that. I feel like if I could just do easy runs all the time, and I would just do that. But I know that you also have to
Yeah.
do some speed, and if you want to get faster. But I just feel like the benefits of easy running is just great, and even if you're not racing or not looking to get the most out of yourself, if you just sort of run at a conversational pace a couple of times a week, I think you can get a lot of benefits from just doing that. So yeah, I just
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Jasper. That was great. Anything you'd like to say, perhaps? Any people you want to thank or whatever? Some shout outs for some clubs or supporters or whatever. Anything else you'd like to add to the podcast?
yeah, I just want to say thank you to all my friends and family who are supporting me on the day, tracking me on the app, and yeah, the Vegan Runners Club who were also there supporting the Tower Bridge, and I guess everyone else who was on the streets of London on Sunday who were cheering, and yeah, it was just a great day. So thanks to everyone.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best in your future running adventures, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks a lot, Thierry.
Cheers,
See you.
Jasper. Bye bye.
Bye.
Perfect. That was great.